I'm Gold Derby editor Daniel Montgomery here with Kodi Smit-McPhee, who stars in The Power of the Dog as Peter Gordon, who, along with his mother, is tormented by a cattle rancher played by Benedict Cumberbatch. So much of the story hinges on what's going on in Peter's head a lot of the time, but so much of it goes unspoken, is mysterious. How do you go about getting into that frame of mind and conveying that without sort of giving anything away, and also kind of, really dancing that fine line that character's on?
I mean, I guess it all starts with how you're just, as an actor, so attracted to a role like that when reading the script or the novel, um, because it is such a challenge. And I'm one throughout my career I tend to kind of approach things in a very underplayed manner anyway. Like directors are usually telling me to turn up the volume or turn up the energy a bit, which I rather, because it's either going to be turn it up or turn it down. So. For this, I really got to bask in the glory of underplaying something so subtly and really internalizing everything. So if anything, I flourished with that challenge, but at the same time, there was a huge amount of territory that I got to explore in the guidance of masterful filmmaker Jane Campion to really achieve, what we see on the screen. All of that, the habits and the tics that Peter has, whether it's in the way he talks or the way he moves, those are really dialed in with the help of Jane and the people that she works with.
And this being set in the American West, 1920s Montana, you've actually, it's not your first Western film. You were in Slow West a few years ago. Did any of that sort of experience translate here and help you get into the setting and into the character?
If anything, just a parallel to it is that Slow West being my first movie that I shot in New Zealand, I was always blown away with my experience there. It's such a beautiful place. The nature is like astounding visually, and the people are just fantastic. And I always wanted to get back there to shoot something, ideally something that I was extremely passionate about, and it just so happened that this came along. So I'm very grateful for that. But in terms of any parallels between the two jobs, even though they're in the same genre, they're so far apart from each other. I mean, we don't even have one gun within Power of the Dog, and yet it's still considered a Western, which I think is beautiful. One very delicate, and the other very, I guess, quirky and violent.
Was there any other preparation besides what was in the script and what was in the book that, research into the era, into ranching, your character studying medicine, what were those kind of preparations?
Absolutely. I mean, I always love to dive into the deepest avenues of research when it comes to, my character's interests and, the life that they had before we find them in the script. And even after, the trajectory in which they go further into the future. So yeah, there was quite a bit to pull from with Peter, but I think a really beautiful part about him is that he flourishes in, isolated territory. He's somewhat of a hermit, and he doesn't mind that. He doesn't want to change that. And his courageous spirit is unwavering in the presence of, judgment. And whatever anyone thinks of him. So, I mean, I loved all of those elements about him. If anything, I relate to those things. I may not want to be a doctor, but, I'm one that's just been so greatly curious about the universe and many different subjects. So we have that in common. But yeah, I guess in terms of the ranching and things like that, because he had to look like an amateur or a rookie, I just didn't really do anything. I just kept it natural. I'd ridden horses before, but that was such a long time ago, and it's nothing like jumping on a bicycle again, So I had to relearn that, and that was a beautiful experience. There was some more of the delicate, stuff that he does with great patience, which was a challenge for me. The creating his notebook and the flowers, which I learned, and mainly though the amount of the energy that I put into Peter was mostly just reinventing like who I am and completely cutting the ties between my habits and my impulses, whether they're physically, mentally, or the way that I talk, between, you know, Peter. And I worked with a body coach, you know, like movement specialist, to become more limber and adopt this new delicate way of walking and running and stopping and thinking. I always played with the comb, you know, in my own time. Um, and I guess the lisp was something too that, you know, originally, again, I was underplaying it, and Jane really wanted me to turn it up and to take it to a whole nother level, which I thought, oh my God, am I doing too much here? But every one of those thoughts is really just your ego and its defiance over, you know, it's somewhat of a fear-based ideology. And in the presence of Jane, you just have to keep surrendering to those, which is a lovely feeling, to put your complete trust in someone who's leading you to something so rewarding.
And the relationship between Peter and Phil Burbank, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, you know, is so interesting and complex, and there's so much under the surface there. Was there like a lot of rehearsal, and what was it like developing that relationship? Because it plays like this really careful, you know, dance that these two are engaged in.
Absolutely. Um, that dance that we talk about is so clear in the book and in the script. And I guess it's one of the things that's so beautiful about it, and not just between, you know, Peter and Phil, but between all four characters. You know, much like the rope being intertwined in Phil's hands, we're doing the same thing. But yeah, specifically, you know, I shared my awareness in character development on the relationship between Peter and Phil. And it's this amazing dynamic of like walking a fine line between, you know, them eventually having something more than this kind of dominance battle. There seems to be somewhat of a relationship or sensuality, if I may say, like brewing between them. But that's just another layer of kind of ambiguity that this movie drags you into in terms of leading you down all of these different avenues of your own judgment, which feeds into you just not knowing where it's going to go, because at the same time that they're growing this sense of appreciation for each other, there's still this underlying tone of you know, they're battling to make each other more vulnerable, and they tend to be on par, you know, throughout. So yeah, there was quite a lot of thought behind that. Again, putting our complete trust into Jane, and having an amazing amount of time with her to dial all that kind of stuff in. I believe it was 2 weeks before filming that we had that. Sometimes it was just Jane and I, to talk about the more kind of secret agent aspects to Peter that no one else could know. And then, you know, for the surface level stuff that was shown, and, you know, the show of Peter, that's what we did, you know, with Benedict. And yeah, I guess it's a fine line also to not want to dial anything in too much, so that you don't have the freedom to explore on the day. So, you know, we kind of tiptoed around what it became. So it still was fresh to us.
And you know, in the midst of filming this, you know, there was a COVID shutdown, as many other productions experienced, and there was a period of uncertainty. Like once you came back to filming, like was it challenging to kind of get back into that, you know, into that rhythm, or was it actually kind of a relief to be back and completing the film?
It was a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of others, but for me specifically, I just, you know, made a mental note to keep Peter alive within me and remind myself of, you know, just his essence, just to keep him there. Because usually when a film's done, I really have this feeling of like unplugging and just letting everything go, the anticipation of it being edited and coming out, you know, all of that worldly stuff, but all of the kind of psychological stuff of the character and the development of it. I just let it all go. But we had to kind of keep it alive and keep that fire there. So that was new, but it was easy to me. And if anything, I think much like Jane, if I may speak on behalf of her, it gave us this ability to kind of mentally go through everything that we'd done, and and come back rejuvenated with new notes and new direction and new impulses that we may not have discovered while, you know, in the momentum of shooting. It was almost like going to reshoots, but we hadn't even finished yet.
And you know, one of the things that's most interesting about Peter is that, you know, we see him at first, he seems shy and sensitive, and yet there's also a sense that he kind of knows himself and is comfortable in his skin in a way that other characters aren't, who maybe present much more kind of aggressively.
Absolutely. I love that about him, and I try to adopt as much of that into my own personality as I can, you know, moving forward after playing him, because it's a really great feeling to be in his shoes, to completely accept who you are and to not care about what others think is so empowering. I spent a lot of my life kind of worrying about the way that people viewed me, or the way that I sounded, or the way that I looked, or the things that I was interested in. And it was only when I fully embraced who I was as an artist, as a person, and loved myself, that, you know, certain things started to manifest for me, that I really wanted for myself. So, and also, you know, to be fully understood by others, that's what happens when you fully embrace yourself. So I absolutely loved taking it to the fullest of my own potential, in the shoes of Peter. And in terms of how it serves as a story, I think is so lovely, because, you know, when you're reading a book, a script, or a movie, even if you try to have no judgment about it, you know, everyone is representing some certain archetype. It's kind of like, you know, the Scooby-Doo cartoons, where you're working out who's the guy that's going to have the mask pulled off his face. And for this one, it kind of forces you to do that with every character. In terms of this sense of impending doom coming your way, you're trying to work out, how is it going to end? Who is it going to hit? And I just absolutely love how Peter, in many ways, is the last person who we expect to be so powerful. Um, yeah, I love that.
And you know, the film has been extremely well received this fall, since it's been showing at festivals and you know, finally releasing in theaters and now on Netflix. And you know, you won New York Film Critics Circle. You know, the morning, you know, we are you know, recording this, Critics' Choice nomination also. So like, what has that recognition been like? I mean, you've been acting for a while and you've actually gotten Critics' Choice nominations when, you know, as a younger actor. So
Yeah.
what is this recognition that the film is getting? What's that been like so far?
Honestly, it has left me speechless, but if I can try and put it into words, I mean, I'm ecstatic. I feel absolutely humbled. I feel a great sense of relief in this certain chase that I feel any creator has, or anyone on any kind of endeavor, whether it's to do with their personal life or their career. We tend to feel like we're chasing something a lot of the time, and often we're told that, you know, the chase never ends. That if we're chasing something, then it's just going to be that. But I'm so fulfilled and so satisfied to realize that, you know, people are really seeing me for my potential and what I'm worth, um, through the privilege of playing this character and being in a Jane Campion film. Um, it feels amazing, and yeah, I mean, it's just been a lot of sacrifice, blood, sweat, and tears, dedication, and passion. I know all those words can be very cliche and thrown around a lot, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I've been doing this since I was 8 years old. My dad got me into it, so it's something that was not only close to me, but it's a family story, it's a family journey. And you know, as much as it's been so many years to get here, I look back and it's gone in the blink of an eye. So it's really shown me the value of time, and what passion and dedication can do, and consistency, and, you know, choosing the right jobs, being picky, sacrificing other ones for, you know, the things that really speak to me and what I think will speak to an audience. Um, yeah, I mean, there's so much to say about it, but it's hard to put it into words. I guess at the end of the day, I'm just absolutely humbled.
And you know, as you mentioned, you've been working in the industry for quite a while now. You know, and you've made that successful transition from, you know, childhood into adult roles now. Like, how was that over the course of your career, kind of evolving throughout, like as you're growing up and your characters start growing up?
Um, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a defined challenge for many child actors, going from a child and transitioning into an adult. But for me, I mean, if I may say, I feel like I was lucky in the sense that where I kind of broke through with like The Road and you know, Let Me In, and even predating that, you know, here in Australia with Romulus, My Father, a lot of the subject matter and the themes are quite dark and quite heavy and already quite mature. I mean, if anything, in a reverse sense, people and critics and interviewers were always asking me, you know, how I was dealing with such adult themes and did it affect me and things like that. But no, for some reason, I felt the same way as I do approaching those themes now as I did back then. So it was just about me leading the way and being picky with the material that came in. Um, Again, you know, only going into things that spoke to me and I think would stick with an audience and always had a good message about them. Um, and great people to work with. So those things I think made the transition for me a lot easier. I mean, I don't think a lot of people get that privilege sometimes. It's a lot more challenging for others and in different themes and different categories to make that transition. So I can only be grateful for that.
Well, congratulations on, you know, your work in this film, Power of the Dog, all the nominations you've gotten, all the nominations that are potentially coming, knock on wood, um, and just your career up to this point. It's continue doing great work. Thank you so
Thank
much for talking to me about it.
you so much. It was a lovely talk. Thank you for having me.